This episode, I got a story. It's another one in my crazy first date online dating series, and which of course I'm playing the role of the guy that's going on the date. But this particular story is just a weird story where it just ends with like a really crazy situation, like a pretty disgusting type betrayal type situation. But it was a pretty interesting story, and I'm going to talk about this story right after the intro. All right, welcome back to Jaded Answers, and I got a story here for you today. Okay, so a while ago I got a new job. This particular job, you know how sometimes when you get hired with a company, the first thing they want to do right off the bat is send you off somewhere to do some type of training. Sometimes you'll go through a certain period of time of training at the facility or at the company that you work for. And sometimes they may send you off, send you to another location, another city, another state or something like that. Well, this particular job, brand new job, they had to send me away to some other city in a different state. And it was a city and state that I'd never been to before. I'd never been to that city, didn't know anything about the city, but I was going to be there for 2 months for training. So when I knew I was going to be there for 2 months for training, I was going to be put up in a hotel room and all of that kind of stuff. I figured I didn't know anybody there, so I figured what I would do is, open up an online dating account on one of the dating websites and put up a profile and maybe hope to meet somebody that while I'm there, maybe I'll meet somebody that maybe I can, have a few dinner dates or go see a movie with or something like that. So I won't just be completely alone while I'm there. So, a couple of weeks before it was time for me to go, I opened up my online dating account, put in that city as the location, trying to meet some people. And I really didn't have much success until the day that I arrived at that particular city, to start my 2 months in that city. I met someone on the dating website. The other people I met never really amounted to anything, but this person, she was interested in trying to get to know me and was really kept up conversation pretty well and just seemed like an overall nice person. She was cute and everything. So of course I was like, yeah, well, maybe I'll be able to, she seems cool. Maybe I'll be here for 2 months. Maybe I'll be able to, maybe take her out to dinner, have someone to talk to, have someone to show me around the city and all of that kind of stuff. Maybe go see a movie or two. So, I was kind of happy about that. I was looking forward to it. I was like, because I was kind of dreading the next 2 months because I was just going to be there alone, sitting in a hotel room, not knowing anyone. I get there and I get all settled in the hotel room, and for the next couple of days, like my first week of work, she kept up with me. We had a lot of different conversations. We graduated from just talking on the website to talking on telephone and all of that kind of stuff. And everything just seemed real cool. She just seemed like a really smart girl. She was really pretty. Just seemed really down to earth. After about 5-6 days, one day I had to go out and do some grocery shopping because I was doing like meal prep and all of that kind of stuff, trying to cut down on having to go to too many places because I didn't know too much about that city. Like I said, I'd never been there before. So every time I went somewhere, it was like, I'm just driving around trying to find things. So one day I was going to go to the grocery store, get some stuff for meal prep. And I just happened to be talking to her on the phone when I was trying to think of places to go and grocery stores to go. I looked up, a grocery store. There was one that was kind of, not too far from me, but it was a chain that I was familiar with. So I was like, I'm going to go to this grocery store. So while talking to her, she told me that where she lived is right across the street from where that grocery store is. Like her neighborhood is right across the street, like really close by the grocery store. So she decided to invite me over. She was like, well, how about you come over after you finish doing your shopping and stuff? How about you stop by and, we can meet? And it was cool because I was like, she's chill. I wouldn't mind meeting her. So I went over there. Now, I didn't go to the grocery store first because, I knew I was going to her place and I didn't want to go to the grocery store first because, one of the things I was planning on getting was some stuff that needed to be in the freezer. So I would rather go see her first, spend the time there, and then go to the grocery store after I left so that I wouldn't have to worry about stuff, melting or going bad in the car while I'm at her place, having conversations or whatever with her. I get in my car and I'm driving. I got my little directions up so I know where I'm going. When I'm about halfway there, she sends me a text message saying, the door's unlocked. When you get here, just let yourself in. So I looked at the text message for a few minutes and I'm like, I don't know her. I've never met her, never been over there. I don't know. I don't really like to, I don't really want to just walk right into someone's house. I don't even, like me personally, people don't even walk in my house. And I never walk in other people's houses. I always ring doorbells, knock on doors or something like that. I'm never just walking up to somebody's house and just letting myself in. And especially since we had never met each other, I for sure would rather her come to the door and answer the door, when I come over and let me in instead of me walking in. Like, what if that's not really her house and I let myself in and it's like some people looking at me like, what are you doing in here? Thinking I'm breaking into their place. After a couple of seconds, I sent her a message back and I told her, I feel more comfortable if you answered the door. I was like, I don't want to just walk up in the house. I was like, we've never met before. I would rather you answer the door. So she responded back and was like, okay, that makes sense. She was like, well, when you get here, send me a message to let me know you're up front. Do not ring the doorbell. And I was like, okay. So I'm thinking, this is kind of weird. I was like, maybe she have kids, but I was like, I asked her if she had kids and she said no. So it's not like she has kids, like a baby or something that she's worrying about waking up or something. Not unless I was like, well, she could be babysitting or something like that. So I get there and I get to the neighborhood and I'm driving through and it's really nice neighborhood, really nice houses. All really look like really expensive houses. It was like a neighborhood with, really nice neighborhood, an upscale type neighborhood. So I was like, whoa, and like from what I was talking to her on the phone, I mean, she seemed like she probably was somebody that had her life together, but I didn't expect all that, with the big houses and all of this kind of stuff. So I'm just driving through the neighborhood, following my directions that I had written down. And I'm looking at all of the different houses and stuff. And I was like, oh, this is a nice neighborhood. So I get to her place, I see her place there, really big house, yard is really well manicured, mowed down. The bushes and stuff are all trimmed. Just a really big, nice, pretty house, So I get to the house. I pull up in the front and, I don't see a car out there anywhere, but there was a garage, so I figured maybe she's parked in the garage or something like that. I get in front of the house. I send her a message to let her know that I'm outside. I'm sitting there and I'm like, does she want me to wait here till she opened the door? Does she want me to come to the door? And I know she said not to ring the doorbell, so I'm guessing there's something in the house that she don't want me to awake. I'm thinking a kid or something, or maybe a pet or something. I don't know. So I'm just sitting there thinking for a minute. Then I just decide to get out the car. As I'm getting out the car, I look at the door and I notice that the door cracked and I see a woman's face kind of peeking between the door and a hand starts motioning for me to come there. So I'm like, okay. So I walk over to the door. I'm like, that must be her. And I get to the door and she kind of just reaches out and pushes the outside door towards me for me to grab it and open up and walk in, while the inside door, the main door, is the one she has opened up. So she walks in and she holds the door open and I take a couple steps in and I go to say something to her. And right when I'm ready to talk, she looks at me and goes, like, motions for me to be quiet, So I'm like, what's this about? So I was like, okay. So we walk through and I go in and I'm looking. This is a really big, pretty house. Inside is really well decorated, just furniture all over the place. It looks really nice and everything. I was like, oh, this is a nice place. We get down this long hallway and I'm about to say something else. And it was like she could predict every time I thought about saying something, because I'm like, this is the first time meeting the person, the first time me walking in the house. I want to say hello. I want to say hi. I want to say nice to meet you, something like that. But every time I thought about it, she kind of just looked at me and was like, motioning for me to be quiet. And then I noticed that she never said anything. And the whole time when we got there was just quiet. So I'm thinking baby thing, but I know she never told me she had a baby or a child or anything in there. So we get into this room, which looks like a living room. Really nice. There was a sofa on one side of the wall. In front of the sofa was like a really big, like mahogany style coffee table. And there was a laptop on the coffee table. It was facing the sofa. Kind of looked like maybe she was using a laptop as she was waiting or whatever. And then on the side there was a chair, and then across on the other side of the room there was like a big wall shelving unit with all of these decorations, little figurines and stuff like that. And then there was a really large TV that was mounted on the wall and it had some show on TV. It was some kind of home show. So she gets to the room and she turns around and she looks at me. She puts her hand on my shoulders and she kind of like aims my body towards the right. And then she holds her hand up like that one more time, and then she looks and points to a chair. And now this chair was the little armchair that was on the side of the room. It was like kind of on the side of the side of the living room or den or whatever type of room this was, a family room or something. And she just points and she like just motions for me to sit down in that chair, and she stands there and watch while I do it. So I go over and I sit down in the chair and I'm looking and I'm thinking, okay, now we must be about to have our conversation or whatever. So she walks back over to the large sofa, the one that was in front of the coffee table, and she sits down. Now, when she sits down, she says, "Babe, I'm back." I'm thinking she's talking to me. Next, you know, I hear a male voice talking from the computer. And then that's when I look over at the computer and I face it. And there's a man on the computer. She is using Skype or some type of video chat. And he's on the computer and he's talking to her. So I'm thinking, what in the world is going on here? You know? So as they're talking, I'm just sitting there looking and I'm like, okay, she wants me to be quiet because she don't want that person to know that I'm here. And I'm like, why didn't she just tell me not to come now? Or why didn't she just tell that person that she's about to have company? She'll call him back or whatever. But as I'm sitting there, I quickly realized that was actually her husband. At that point, I'm sitting here like, this woman is married and she got me over here and her husband, and she's talking to her husband on video chat while she got me hiding just off the view of his camera, waiting for them to finish their conversation. It was like a really messed up, really disgusting situation. And while I'm sitting there, I found out a little bit more information just while I'm sitting there. What I find out is that her husband is in a similar situation as me. He started a new job and he had to go to a different state to do some training. His job sent him to a different state to do some training. But the kicker is he is actually staying at her parents' house because her parents live in that state. So instead of him staying in a hotel like I'm doing, he's staying in her parents' house. So her husband is at her parents' house talking to her on video chat while she has some strange guy that she met on the internet sitting right off the camera waiting for her to finish their conversation for whatever she had planned. I don't have no idea what her plans were, but I just felt so bad. And I'm looking around and I'm looking at all of this stuff, you know, nice house and everything. And I'm like, she has a husband that's sitting way off in another state for work, thinking that she's, you know, he got a good wife at home waiting for him to get back. Little do he know, she just let some random stranger in the house waiting off the screen, you know. So I sat there for a while and I'm like, what am I going to do now? I was like, I could say something, but that would get her in trouble. And I'm like, I don't necessarily want to get her in trouble, even though this is foul. But I was like, I don't necessarily want to get her in trouble. But I was like, well, maybe their conversation will end soon and then I'll just leave. No, their conversation lasted about a good 30 minutes. And I'm just sitting there. And then every once in a while, I could see where she cuts her eyes at me and kind of makes a face like I'm sorry. But I'm like, oh my God. So then when the conversation is over, she finally gets off the video chat, the Skype or whatever it was. She was with her husband, which now I know she's married and she was talking to her husband. So she gets off the video chat with him and then was like, okay, now I can finally talk to you. And then I was like, you're married? And she was like, yes. Didn't I tell you? I was like, no, you didn't tell me you was married. And she was like, is that a problem? I was like, yes. I was like, I'm sitting here talking to you and your husband thinking he got a wife at home, you know, just waiting for him to come back. And you got me in here sitting off screen, you know, hiding and stuff. I was like, no, I'm not with that. So I ended up getting up and leaving. And she was like, I'm sorry. I guess I should have made it clear beforehand. I thought you was cool with this. You know, I leave the house and that was the end of that. But that was a crazy situation. Have you ever been in a situation like that where, you know, you go somewhere thinking things is one way, you know, thinking you're running into something that is pretty much standard. And then you find out you're in the middle of some really foul, disgusting betrayal type stuff, you know, and you are there not knowing. You're just placed in this situation. But anyway, that was my story. If you like this story and you want to hear more stories like that, go ahead and hit the like button. Go ahead and hit the like button so, you know, so that'll help out with the algorithm and other people will be able to, you know, see this story, have the opportunity to hear about the same story. And make sure you click subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified when I release new videos with more crazy stories. And thank you for listening. And that's the end of my story. I'll see you next time. You made it to the end of the video. Thank you for watching. While you're here, why don't you check out that video right there, or maybe that one right there. And, you know, while you're at it, go ahead and click my image in the middle there and subscribe to this channel.